Welcome to episode 26 of the Group Ride Podcast. I'm your host, Wes Salmon, and I'm coming to you from Southern California. In today's show, I sit down with Southern California local Phil Gaimon to talk about cookie fondos, KOM crushing, and a whole bunch of other stuff he's working on. So clip in, riders, the Group Ride Podcast is rolling out. So I am in Toluca Lake, California, speaking with former professional cyclist and purveyor of the Worst Retirement Ever video series on YouTube, as well as a number of great rides and a number of books. Phil Gaimon, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir.
So you were on one of my previous shows, I think it was episode 4, where we talked about your previous 2 books and your first year doing a Grand Fondo that was cookie-based, as well as your plans at that time to do this crazy YouTube star thing. So I got a list of topics to talk about, so let's get started on those.
Cool.
So the first one, the most important one, is your Fondo. So October 15th of this year, you're doing a cool Grand Fondo based on cookies.
It's cookie themed, yes. That's the basically, like I talked about it in episode 4. Is I met a good friend of mine who tied me in with a bunch of celebrity chefs, and he brings a couple thousand cookies. And the other chefs come. So we kind of work with his charity this year is Chef Cycle, which benefits No Kid Hungry. And in exchange for that, they sent out a bunch of celebrity chefs. So the post-ride meal where everyone's sweaty and gross is going to have Michelin stars, and it's going to be really funny.
That's an interesting contrast.
Yeah, I really like that kind of stuff.
So the food on the rest stops will be mostly cookies, but then towards the end, you're going to have a pretty badass meal. Yeah,
so we'll have cookies, and then like Cliff Bar is sponsoring it with like real ride food if you want to mix in some real ride food, and then the standard stuff there. And then at the expo, at like the packet pickup, and then at the finish line. So the packet pickup will be Michael Voltaggio's cooking. He won Top Chef a couple of years ago.
Nice.
And then at the finish, his brother, Brian Voltaggio, and then a handful of other. Jeff Mahan's going to do some stuff, and a bunch of. If you go on the website, it's pretty nuts the chef lineup we have. But the Voltaggios are kind of the top of that.
And the routes you have give you the opportunity to work up a pretty big appetite. There's a few routes that are pretty significant, but start from the beginning. I know you guys opened up a new shorter route more recently. Tell me about that first route.
Yeah, we started. So last year we had 3 distances. It was 50 to 115. We just add climbs, but even the short one last year, the 50 mile, like still had some tough hills in it, and there's definitely like an aspect of the market that was not served by the 50 mile.
Right.
So we put in a 30 miler, I think it's gonna be a 32, 33, that's geared for people who don't feel like going up mountains to earn their cookies, and they're just gonna, they get all the highlights. So the main part, like the kind of the climax of the ride that I tried to design is Cliff Bar set up a, like the Cliff Bar coffee stop. So it's like across from the beach. And like most rides, people race past the stops, and that's wrong. That's off season. You shouldn't be doing that. So we set it up where like you stop, you put your feet up, you relax, and there's a coffee shop which I'm sure you'll get to know well called 10-Speed Coffee, but it's part of Peddler's Fork. So we do our VIP dinner there, and then they bring like an espresso truck, and they're pulling shots on the beach, and we just sit there and you eat cookies and Cliff Bars and you drink coffee.
Wow. So this is less about riding a bike and more about eating some amazing food, right?
Experience. So the mini chip, the new short route, just kind of goes through the farms in Camarillo from the start, and then goes to the beach stop, and then comes back.
Nice.
So
that's where you've got the cookie enthusiasts and the not a hill enthusiast. That Venn diagram that crosses right over perfectly.
The goal was there's going to be some people who just see our chef lineup and want to come just for that, and now here's a way they can pull that off: is you got to ride 30 miles. You can do it.
Right. You can do it on a beach cruise, or you can do it on a mountain bike. Yeah.
Exactly. I want to see some really silly bikes on that ride.
So speaking of silly things, are costumes encouraged in this ride? I know there's some rides that do that.
Well, you don't have to encourage them, but it happens. Like we have like the cookie KOM kit this year that Castelli made for us. So that'll be featured heavily. But last year there was some like people had like little Cookie Monster ears and stuff attached to their helmet. Yeah, people take care of it.
Very cool.
We're a couple weeks from Halloween, so you can practice Fondo.
That's true. So the other aspect of the ride is that, including yourself being one of the stars of the ride, who else is coming on this ride that people may know of that they may want to ride with?
We got some good. Basically, I just guilt my pro friends into coming, and I'm like, I'll sort of, okay, bring your wife, bring your girlfriend. You know, it's Malibu. It's taking a vacation anyway. So my friends fall for it. So Mike Woods is coming, current star of the Vuelta.
Yeah.
Alex Howes is coming. Both. So with Ellie is Mike's wife and Jess is Alex's girlfriend. So they're gonna come. They'll probably ride together on either the 50 or the 30. They said they've been training. We'll see. And then there's a bunch of local pros. SoCal is pretty pro heavy.
Yeah.
So we'll have like Justin Williams and Rasan and those guys. And then who else? Oh, Tom's. I'm pretty sure Tom's is coming. He hasn't confirmed his race schedule. His girlfriend Abby will come. So I think that's the core. That's our pro core. Nice. But I'm still pressuring everyone I can. So,
right.
Yeah.
So the other thing that's happening at your Fondo is that is the day before, I think, the release of your third book.
Yeah. Well, the Fondo, the idea was that the release would happen at the Fondo, which made me have to write faster. But it's still done like 5 months before anything comes out. I don't know what goes on. But originally when I signed the book contract, I was going to race another year, and then it was going to come out like the following April. So that didn't work out. So I sped up, and then I was like, okay, why doesn't the book come out at the Fondo? And that way, like if everybody comes to the Fondo, buys one or most of them, or maybe they buy two because it's gifts, and I'll sign them, and that way, like, it gets a good release, and it kind of builds from that. It's the book publishing business is, I don't know, I use like a bigger publisher this time, and it's pretty weird. It's very different.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that works. But this is my only chance to get a bestseller. So we're pulling out the stops on that.
So the goal is to have people come ride the Fondo, eat a great meal, and then pick up a book or two at the end and have you sign it, as opposed to carrying it in their jersey pocket from the morning.
Yeah, don't do that. It'll get all sweaty. Or do that, and then you got to buy two more.
That's a good point. Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool. So that is your third book, and you're the audio reader for this book, if I understand correctly. Did you read this book on the audio format?
Yeah, that was a long few days. I'm comfortable in front of a microphone now.
Yeah.
No, it was funny because I don't know. I wanted to do an audiobook, and the first two were read by the same guy, and then and actually it was like the same audio company, I guess, that owns most of these. So they kind of set it up, and then I was like, I want to read this one. Like, this book, I worked a little harder on, and I knew what I was doing, and I want this book to do better. So I asked to read it. They made me audition, which was funny. I was like, I have a podcast that gets a lot of whatever, fine. And I went in, I did it, but I got it.
Congratulations.
Yeah. And then it was kind of insulting because everything that I do, I feel like I start by trying to convince whoever in like the business world, I try to convince them that I'm not a moron. I think like athletes are just not looked at, but cyclists are pretty sharp. I don't know. So they scheduled like 6 days to read my book, and it took 2.5. And yeah, but it's done.
What was the weirdest part about reading your own words to a microphone?
The only part that wasn't super easy and comfortable was when I was doing someone's voice. And because like I'm not good at impressions, but I still you have to do enough of a voice to know that you're talking about someone else. You can't just read it because people don't see the quotes when they're listening to it. It was a little tricky, and no one like explained that to me. And I really wish that Alex Howes was there because he does amazing impressions, and like a lot of them, like he does a great Ryder Hegedal, like all of the people whose name on. If he could do like a Christopher Walken as well as he does like the mechanic on Cannondale, who no one's heard of, Alex would be on SNL. But it's a limited scope. But I really wish I could have used him for that.
That's a great opportunity for a very premium version of your book, a re-release of the audio version where Alex does the impressions.
It occurred to me, like, as I was doing one of the Belgian directors, I was like, damn, Alex did such a good Johnny Wells.
Okay, so people can get that on Amazon as well. They probably can't pick that up at your Fondo. I don't think you're going to have CDs and
no. We're ordering. I know there's going to be like 1,000 books there.
Okay.
That's all I know.
Real books.
Correct, like paper books. Yeah.
Fantastic.
The audio ones. It is surprising people still do the CDs.
Yeah, I know.
But they do.
Yeah, it's weird.
Because they sent me CDs for the last one, and I was like, okay, I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah, where do you put it?
I put it on the website. They're sold.
Wow.
It happens.
That's crazy. So the next topic we have, other than your awesome book, which, by the way, if you haven't read the first book, Pro Cycling on $10 a Day, you should go read that first, because this third book is a continuation of that career.
Yeah. It's not... I clear like it's not a sequel, because nobody wants to publish or read a sequel, and it kind of just starts from scratch. It's sort of the full story. I didn't want to assume that like there's no overlap, but I didn't want to assume that anybody's read the first one. So yeah, and this is, I think you'll know it right away when you read it. It's more of a grown up book.
Well, the first one wasn't a children's book necessarily.
Yeah, but it was written, I don't know, like I was 26.
It was a great first effort.
It started like as like a humor blog that I sort of like put together into a book. And this one, I knew I was writing a book when I was writing the book.
Okay.
So I think it makes a little more sense. And I think it goes deeper. I don't know. I don't remember writing. I remember making myself cry writing this one, and that didn't happen in the first book as much. Yeah.
That's weird.
It was a real like tortured artist thing going on, which I'd always rolled my eyes at, and then I was in the middle of it.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That never happens to me with this podcast. I never
See,
cry.
you're not doing it right then.
I know. I need to get more feels in this podcast. So the next topic, your worst retirement ever. You are smack dab in the middle of your worst retirement ever. Mm-hmm. You've published 7 episodes on YouTube, going all around the country, conquering different KOMs or attempting to.
Correct.
Getting your car broken into, shaving down parts of your carbon bike that people didn't know existed for minimal weight gain. It's a pretty crazy thing you got going on. For your KOM hunting, what have you learned about this whole endeavor?
Oh, I mean, the KOM thing was the easy part. Like the actual riding was fine. No, what I learned was relationships with sponsors and all the logistics and video production and like YouTube practices. It's a whole world that I was an idiot to just throw myself into, and I can't believe it's working. But it has. It's been fun.
What would you tell other people who have a inclination to go out and start to kind of chase some KOMs outside of the whole recording it for video on YouTube? Like, what kind of preparation should they start doing to find that KOM that they can really master? Right.
I mean, for KOM tip, the thing is like, I'm not really like, the reason I'm good at KOMs is because I raced in the World Tour for a couple of years. It's not like I trained for KOMs or even know how to do that. I'm just coasting off of residual fitness that was not intentional.
Yeah.
But I have learned, like, I mean, you're pacing basically like an individual time trial, and it's obvious, like, you're going with a flying start, you pay attention to the wind, you make sure you're not like ripping into a headwind. But for the most part, like that kind of stuff, I haven't had the luxury of that because I like fly somewhere and I have to do it, and I'm going home the next day.
Yeah. So do you do any scouting before you go out?
I try. I sort of learned that in the show that it's a good idea to do some scouting. So like the second episode, the gate was down at the top and I couldn't even do the whole climb. And yeah, the thing is, I guess one thing that I've learned from this is it's not all conditions, but very much conditions, like a very big factor in this stuff. And that's the thing that like, you can't really see it on Strava, but when you do it, it's like when it's a bad day or when it's not a good day, and you can sort of feel the differences. And just from like doing ones around here that like I do a million times, and I know like my power can fluctuate within 30 watts and my time can be the same or better on a lower power. It's a weird, basically what I've learned is that Strava is not a sport and it is a social media application, which we've all taken too far, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah. For sure. Is there a plan for a season 2?
There is.
Nice.
There is. The thing is, I know how to do it now, and my sponsors are really happy about it. That's sort of been the main thing. Is like, I don't know. It's not that complicated. But there's no like the cycling audience in the U.S. doesn't have a lot to watch. Like it's hard to watch a lot of grainy European feeds, and like I make a good show for what that is.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So yeah, people are into it enough that we'll do something next year. I have plans on how that's going to work. I'm gonna, I don't know. It's still like it's a lot. It's a lot. If you're not careful, this is a job, and that's not okay.
But when we talked in the previous episode, you were starting to transition into a normal job at that point, or
that hasn't happened.
Well, it sounds like YouTube could be your job. I mean, there are people that make a living out of YouTube, and you've got a following, you've got sponsors,
Right.
you've got abilities.
No, that exists. That's been like how I've paid the bills this year. But the people who are like making a living on YouTube have like 50 times the subscriber base. Like it's a whole different animal.
Yeah.
And like they do well. My whole thing was like I was trying to sell like a travel show in Hollywood this time, well, for like 3 years. Like I was living here and I had a TV agent and we're pitching it around, and it was like a good idea, but the TV thing kind of, well, that whole business is really tough. Obviously it's like the most competitive business in the world.
Right. That's why.
So at no point did I like put my eggs in that basket, but some of the feedback that I got from like production companies when we're pitching it, and to begin with, I already got further than I ever should have with that stupid show idea. But production companies were kind of like, okay, this is a cool idea, and we can try to get over the fact that like nobody cares about cycling in this country. And then their next question was kind of like, who are you? Well, like, how can you host a show? So my response was, fine, I'll just do one. So YouTube sort of worked for that, but that was the idea, was to like use that as a stepping stone or a proof of concept or something into something else. And so I guess I learned like how to produce branded content and how to exist on camera and that kind of thing. But I don't see it growing to like, so my TV agent also represents, YouTube stars. And so people with, I have less than 20,000 subscribers. People with 2 million subscribers, well, they just get an email once like he's like, he'll get an email for a client once in a while. It's like, hey, can you tweet this about our this new frozen food that we have? Here's $50,000. I'm not in that. It's not going to work that way. But that does exist.
Well,
but
you do have a great angle for great, pastry-based sponsors and baked goods-based sponsors. So
right, that's true. But the problem, well, there's a couple problems. I refuse to monetize cookies.
It's a bold stance.
It is. Well, in my situation, I could, but the thing is, I'll have a ride where I give free cookies. But that's the extent. I'll sell like we have the kit with the cookies on it. But I don't want to I don't want to endorse another cookie, because I think the whole, like the thing that's awesome about the cookie thing is just how, I don't know how it happened, and it was completely, I could have planned it, and it was completely organic, although they're not always organic, but it's the purest, most amazing thing that's ever happened, where people just waited outside the bus to bring me cookies at races for a couple of years.
Yeah, that's gonna feel great.
I don't want to try and sell that. I think that would be gross. So I haven't barked up that tree, and no one's, I haven't had to turn down Oreo or anything. So speaking
of turning down cookies, so we talked about this a little bit after I recorded the first show about the issue of people bringing you food, and you being a World Tour professional that is constantly checked for banned substances.
Right.
A lot of the speculation was that, Phil never ate the cookies because it's too risky.
Right.
Just randoms showing up giving you food. Mm-hmm. Tell me. Did you eat the cookies?
I ate all of the cookies. The thing, well, I didn't eat all. Okay, I didn't. If they brought me like a whole box, I wouldn't eat all of them, but I would absolutely have a taste of each one. The thing is, like, if nobody wants to poison me, and if they do want to poison me, then like I screwed up and it's kind of on me. Was sort of what I thought. And the much more likely scenario was they wanted me to have a cookie,
right,
that they baked or bought, and I don't know. I just never felt that it would have been totally available if someone decided that I should be out of the sport to do that. But I'm proud to say no one ever poisoned me or anything along those lines.
What was the sketchiest cookie you ever ate?
I don't think I mean, I had some like bad ones. There was a couple times that like a kid would come up with like a Chips Ahoy, and I would like take a bite to be polite, but those are gross.
It's been in his pocket all day.
Something like, yeah, like they were, or I'm trying to think. No, there wasn't ever anything like at no point did like a guy with a tie-dye shirt and dreadlocks come up and like, hand me a balled up thing and say, yeah, that didn't happen.
That's good to
know. I probably would have turned down a cookie if it was clearly a weed cookie.
Right.
But or give it to the mechanic. But yeah, it never came to that.
Cool. So you're doing a season 2 of Worst Retirement Ever.
Mm-hmm.
You're also doing something else I've seen you tweet about recently. There's a KOM challenge in Taiwan coming up, and you've been throwing out a few little jabs, Conor McGregor style,
right,
at some of the other pros that may show up at that KOM challenge. Tell me about that.
I noticed that. I remember that KOM that race. It's a hill climb, and it's like I think it's the world's longest. Well, it's got to be the world's longest uphill race because what else? So it's 10,000 feet. You start at the bottom in a pack, and you race to the top, and it's super horrible. It's very worst retirement ever. But it's also like exactly what I've been doing this whole year. So they kind of invited me, and then I saw they invited Nibali, and so my thing is like. I don't want to piss him off, but like he's gonna destroy me. He's like second at the Vuelta now,
yeah.
and everyone's like, oh, dude, it's October. You get him. I'm like, that's a week and a half after. What's the last race? The one in Italy, the one day.
I can't remember it.
Lombardia.
Okay.
He's gonna be in shape.
Be primed
so like he's
to go.
not gonna care that much, but it's also like I go on the group ride. I don't care. Trust me, I go hard. Like you can't let anybody else win. So I figured that I would up the ante by just being a giant pain in the ass on Twitter and just like and I have more ideas on that.
So you're expecting a strong second.
Well, I don't know who else is there. I don't know what other pros they have, but yeah, I think he's gonna play with me and then he'll be done. And I hope there's money for second place. It's good money to win. I didn't ask that.
At what time of year does this happen?
It's late, so I have to leave like from my Fondo.
Oh, wow.
I think I fly out at like 2 a.m. that morning. I'll be nice and drunk too. That's the other thing. Because I'm not like I invited all my friends. I'm not going to not have an after party at my own Fondo.
Right.
To get second to Nibali. Yeah.
Okay, so changing gears real quick. One of the things that has come up recently in the California area news is the number of people that are finding themselves getting in incidents on the road, whether it be hit and run incidents or just crashing into cars or cars crashing into them. I just moved down here from Seattle. I've noticed that driving down here is different than in the Pacific Northwest, and driving is different in most places in the country. And there's tactics I would use back in Seattle to try to stay safe that may or may not apply down here based on the way the infrastructure is different. As someone who's been riding on roads for a very long time in your training and your group rides, what type of advice would you give someone who is looking to get out on the road more, but is worried about interactions with cars and traffic? Like, what would be some of the things they could do to make themselves more visible, more safe, more predictable, those types of things?
My main thing is like, it's generally like it's not the cyclist's fault. So like we could be super visible if somebody's texting or drunk or whatever. Like, and it's kind of it's like the precursor to blaming the victim, and it just to me like none of that matters. Like obviously don't wear black at night and don't bring blinky lights, but I don't know. I think it has. There was a weird like political thing in LA, but I honestly I feel much safer here, like training in deep Hollywood than I did like in rural Georgia, which sounds crazy, but like there it's one car every 20 minutes, but he's going 70 miles an hour. Whereas here, like I'll ride Sunset Boulevard up from PCH all the way into Hollywood. It's like 2 miles from home, and I'm going the same speed as traffic. Like a car can hit me, I'll be fine. Like it doesn't happen, but it's like you're kind of just in there. And I guess what I've learned from being in the city is I ride very aggressively.
Right.
Like, and I don't know if that's something to like advise people, but like I take my lane, I find like cars drive closer to the curb than they drive to each other. So it's often safer like to go like full messenger style and ride like in the middle between two cars going the same way. Like if it's a 4-lane road, just ride in between the cars.
Right.
And they make more room for you rather than like you're on the curb, they'll squeeze you, they'll turn right in front of you, they don't see you. There's a lot of lights that like if it's a red light and I can see nobody's coming, like I'm gonna run that and claim my lane. I'm gonna stop and look and make sure nobody's coming,
right.
But I'm gonna blast through and now I have my lane rather than like trying to get started and establish a lane next to these 3,000 pound, or whatever a G-Wagon weighs.
Right. Well, it sounds similar to my style where I'd rather them be mad and angry at me because I did something they didn't feel was appropriate by taking the lane or splitting traffic or getting out in front of them versus them not seeing me.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's just you take your safety in your own hands and like it's real. That's sort of the lesson that I'm learning is the more people that I know. And I guess the thing that you were commenting on was a couple months ago I was going for a Strava on Onyx Pass. It's like the climb from Redlands to Big Bear. It's like a 2-hour just straight up from nothing to 8,000 feet. And I was trying to get all the Big Bear ones as marketing for my wattage cottage, my little rental house up there.
Right.
And I just thought that whoever stays there should see me on top of every climb. So that was the last one I had to do. And I got to the top, and there was like this group of people from Beaumont, I think, out there, and like just that's the next town over. They just did a crazy ride for themselves, and they were like, oh, they recognized me. I had a cookie suit on. It's not hard to recognize my bike sometimes. And they took a picture, and it's nice. I forgot about it, and then I got a message on Facebook like 2 days ago that was just, hey, and it was from two people who were on that ride. Hey, one of the guys on this ride had been like really excited to meet you, and he was talking about it for weeks, and he died.
Oh,
he was hit by a car. If you could like say something, and I'm like, what the hell do I say? Like,
man,
what? I don't know. And that was like the second. And there was another guy that like came to a book signing and was super cool. And turns out like we were at University of Florida at the same time. And he'd followed my whole thing. He hit by a car in Redlands.
Oh man.
And I don't. It just like I maybe I'm noticing that more, but I do feel like it's getting a little bit worse, or it's getting a little more heated, or something.
Well, the stats do prove that the actual number of people getting hit by cars, fatally getting hit by cars in the U.S. has started to trend upward since 2015, I think, slowly.
Okay. Yeah, there we go.
So it's starting to get a little bit worse. So you're right. But I think it's funny with cyclists that every person that we know that has had an interaction with a car where they're thrown from the bike or worse, put in the hospital, it's very personalized to us. Whereas people who drive cars, like I drive a car too, you drive a car, somebody gets into a car crash, you don't really dwell over their situation,
right?
Even though you're just as at risk when you're driving your car, So
sure.
it's weird. We're very disassociated with the potential risk in a car. Where
right.
Cyclists are hyper aware of the potential risks, or every little bit that we see happen go wrong, we kind of internalize that and personalize it.
We're so vulnerable. That's
very much so, yeah.
So that, like, if there's a message I could get across, it's like, wear a helmet, like, assume that the car next to you doesn't see you and is about to turn right, and like give him space for that.
Yeah.
Like, there's no, I don't like try to get into it with cars, but I do try to talk to them, and that generally escalates to yelling because that's where they take it.
Yes.
But like, I'll tap on a window and be like, hey, you were really close back there and it freaked me out. Like I'm scared, not like act scared.
Okay.
And I'm not, because it happens every intersection. But like, if someone comes too close, like I'll tap and generally in LA they'll get a middle finger or whatever.
Right.
But I don't know. It's I have no idea what to do other than like, yeah, just be careful.
Yeah. It's funny, like all the interactions I've had, even in Seattle, where people are much more docile in their cars, and I don't know if it's in the water or whatever, but they still are frustrated when you do things like, roll a stop sign or filter through traffic or whatever. And I actually had one interaction where I filtered up to the front, and a lady had her window down, and she said, hey, you do realize that drivers get so angry when you do that. I'm like, well, do you understand why we do this? Because you don't filter motorcycles in Washington State. So coming up between two cars is so foreign to them. So I explained, I was like, you don't want me sitting back there in traffic. For one, I'm going to get squished. Two, I'm going to slow down that traffic lane when it's my turn to go, because you get to floor it, I got to pedal. So me getting out in front so I can get to that bike lane you see over there is much more advantageous to traffic moving and my safety than me sitting back there and feeling like it's fair for me to wait my turn. And she's like, oh, I never thought of that. And that's the only time I've ever had a conversation with someone in a car while I was on the bike that ended with us being like happy with it. Other time it's middle fingers, cursing, threatens to fight. So for me, it's like biting my tongue is the best thing I can possibly do, because I can't win an argument with a truck that is behind me that's now mad at me.
Right. I don't know. I do feel like there's two sides to that. There's also the side of like, if someone honks at you and you yell at them and they're shamed, maybe they won't honk at the next guy. I don't know. The problem is like the infrastructure doesn't exist. Like the US isn't made for what we're trying to do.
Right.
So like, it's not going to work. There isn't like an answer that's going to please everybody. Like the way that's legal is where cyclists get 3 feet. Like that sucks for cars. Like I've been stuck behind cyclists. It's super annoying. Like I don't honk, I understand. But like, until that problem is solved, until like the norm is riding a bike, or until the norm, like a bike lane exists, it's just, there's going to be that element of it. But everyone needs to pay more attention and get off their phones when they're driving.
Yeah, no kidding. So changing gears to another topic around people crashing their bikes. This year on the Pro Tour, a number of major crashes happened, some as a result of riders, butting heads or throwing elbows.
Right.
Others in one of your teammates or former teammates' cases, hitting something on the road. I think it might have been a snake, as from one of the...
It appears to have been a snake.
So Tom Squinge, he hit the deck really hard in the Tour of California. And my wife and I watched it real time, and watching him stumble around and try to get back on his bike, and nobody jumping out to say you're not ready to ride your bike just yet was scary. So you've seen years and years of pro pelotons and lots of crashes and lots of issues. Is there something that the racing organizations or the governing bodies of pro cycling could do to help situations like Tom's was in, when he was clearly not ready to ride a bike yet?
Right. I mean, I'm sure there's something that could be done. There's a whole mentality in the sport, which I've experienced. I've had concussions. I've had times where I couldn't get up if I wanted to. And then I've had some where it's just like, you know what? I finished the stage today, but I'm dizzy.
That's not good.
For the most part, in the last few years, teams have made... They've made an effort. It's as they became aware of it. Obviously, cycling lags 3 years behind the NFL and any mainstream real sports, but it's not like they're not trying. And it is hard to think of a pragmatic way, because in the case of Tom's, riders are spread out literally over 3 miles. You don't have someone watching everyone. A crash happens fast, and the thing is the rider's instinct, and I've been this guy, you crash, well, that's the breakaway. You better get up. You're
right.
Everything you've ever trained and believed, and every contract you're trying to get, you have no self-worth. And the first thing is I have to get up and get back on that wheel. And that's just the instinct. And that's just because riders have no value. And that's the situation. I think that's where to fix it, it would have to that whole mentality would change, and I don't really see that happening. It'd be if the people who are riding support for the race, but that's not practical either, because these are they're almost volunteers. They're different I don't know. It's just cycling. Cycling is kind of, it's we're here, but it's a fringe sport. It's low budget sport. It just, there's a lot that can't be done.
Yeah.
And everyone has to watch out for themselves and each other. That's kind of the thing. Yesterday, I was on the Nichols ride. That's the fast group ride, and a guy crashed. And it's a pack of 60 guys who all can afford fancy bicycles, and somehow there's no doctor. I'm just but I mean, he was it was a younger guy. He was shaken up, but the whole front group stopped, and we called an ambulance. They checked him out. He was okay. He got home in an Uber to save him some money. And we just took care of each other. That's part of it. And I think that mentality will eventually prevail. And I think Tom's for whatever it brought some knowledge that a little more effort should be made, and on the road decisions and stuff like that. But I think they handled that reasonably well, as far as the moto official. That shouldn't be his job.
Yeah, he's not in a position to make that call.
It was a weird amount of hate going towards that guy, and thank God he was wearing a helmet and no one knows his name.
Right. Yeah, because his only real job there is to help them get back on the bike, because he can't.
Yeah, and you don't even know what he saw.
Yeah.
And they don't have peripheral vision in those things. And you have a guy who Tom's wants to get up. You can't tell him not to get up if you're not his boss. And eventually the car came up, was yo, dude, get off the bike.
Right.
There's just too many things to control for there to be a protocol almost.
So my last question is a variation of a question I asked you in the first episode you were on. That question was, tell me about your best day on the bike. Since we've already gotten that answer on the previous show,
okay.
I'm going to ask you.
What was my answer on that one?
I was winning the Redlands Classic.
Okay, because we have a new one now.
You have a new best day ever? Oh man, now I need to figure out whether or not I need to change my question, because my question was going to be, what's been your best day of retirement? So maybe it still fits.
Well, this could be both, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my last day as a pro was New Year's Eve. That's when your contract ends out. So 2016, right? What year is this? Yes, 2016. It's Monday. And I was in Hawaii. I had a vacation, a family vacation thing, and I had just met the CEO founder of Instagram by a weird coincidence. and he was wanting to ride Mauna Kea. Like, I wasn't even really planning to do any crazy riding when I was there, and I hadn't started the whole KOM thing really. But so Kevin sort of hit me up, and it was like, let's do this. And I got a follow car. So there's a guy, Alex Candelario, if you know that name. So he raced for Optum and a million Kelly benefits. All, like, he was one of the domestic veterans, I guess, and he ended up running tours in Hawaii. And so I just sort of asked him, like, hey, you want to drive support for this thing? And like, it's a volcano. It's the biggest climb that you can do in one day, basically, on a bike, as far as like altitude gain. So you dip your bike in the water at the beach, so you're at 0, and it's 80 degrees, and people are wearing bikinis, and then you like take a highway up to, I forget, I get the altitudes wrong, but I think it's like 10,000 feet, and then you can go right, and that's Mauna Loa, which is the highest paved road that you can climb to, and then Mauna Kea you go left, and there's a dirt section. I did that, and it, like, you get to the dirt, and there's like, my bike wasn't appropriate. I thought it would, like, Kando told me, he's like, yeah, dude, you're gonna need a mountain bike for that part. And I'm like, F off, I'm World Tour. Like, I don't worry about it. I'll bring 25s. I got a 28 cassette. There's nothing I can't get up. And then fast forward to me, like, shouldering my bike at 13,000 feet running, like, after 4 hours of climbing.
Oh man.
And I like got through the dirt part and got to the end, like, so the last mile or two is paved. So I got through the dirt, and then I like jump back on the bike and start going again. And so now I'm at 13.5 or something. And I've never had to do this in my entire life, in any interval or any workout, whatever. I had to stop.
Oh,
like,
wow.
I just stopped, and I just sat on the guardrail, and I ate a Cliff Bar. It's like, that's how messed up I was. I ended up getting the Strava by like 2 hours, because who else is doing that?
Exactly.
And but it was like a really kind of special way to empty my last day as a pro. It was my last time wearing the World Tour kit, and it ended up like getting surprisingly emotional, and sort of transitioning into like what I'm going to get at bike riding for the rest of my life, I hope, as far as just like trying to do the best I can and pushing myself for nothing other than pushing myself.
Right. Yeah.
And seeing what you can do, and then meeting new people, like hanging out with Kevin was awesome.
Yeah. And you had known him before? It was just a random...
We'd done like one ride, like he was in LA, and then we happened to be, so we were together here, and then he happened to be doing the Hawaii thing. We were texting back and forth.
Okay. Do you ride with a lot of CEOs?
No one like that. No. He's just like, he's like a great bike dork.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And like, actually a strong dude. The last time I saw him, he did the VIP ride at the Tour of California. And I'm not sure if they knew his deal when he signed up. Like, they just take a registration. But so I'm friends with the organizers there. So I was like, yo, I'm driving the follow car for that VIP over there. And he's like, we don't have follow cars. So I'm like, yeah, we do. It was neat. And so like I was in like his wife, Nicole, was in the car.
Oh, cool.
And we were just heckling. But he was like, he has a nice bike, as you would.
Yes.
But he trained, and like it was like I hadn't seen him on a time trial bike, but like he looked good. Like, he had a fit, he was moving. He won by like a lot. Like, he won the VIP ride, but there were some fast, like former pros and stuff like that.
That's impressive.
I was surprised how fast, but I guess that's the guy who doesn't, do something with 80% asked.
Yes. You don't get to be the CEO of Instagram by doing it 80%.
Yeah. But so that's been a cool relationship. And I've gotten to know, like, that's what got me the foot in the door with Hollywood, is like, I found the one agent at United Talent Agency who's a bike fan. And now I'm pitching a TV show to A&E or something. So like, it's weird, but
that's a crazy
you get
transition.
to meet people, and yeah, it's just when you sort of squeeze your way into stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why you've stayed in this area. 'Cause I know you're originally from Georgia, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So by moving here after you've retired, this is now your retirement community.
Correct.
Where you're going to now make your next play at your big thing. And it sounds like, TV and movies.
No, probably not. That was the thing I could try. I was here and it existed and it would be fun if it worked, but it's like, man, if you live here, like everyone in this town is trying to crack that, and I found bike racing too hard. Like to try and like be on TV is probably like way more competitive, and to get there, forget it.
Yeah.
Like while I have time, if it falls into my lap, I'll absolutely take it. And it's been like a fun puzzle to sort of work on. But I think what I've learned from that, like I'll apply in sports marketing down the line. And I think like the reason I don't want to leave here is there's, it's LA, it's a big city, and there's a lot of opportunities.
Right. Right.
If there's got to be a job for me in this city. So, and not so much probably in Athens, Georgia. Like, I don't know what I would do there. Like, I have great friends in other places that I've lived and where I would go back to. But, yeah, for right now, it seems like I've just met so many cool people and creative people and made a great network of friends really quickly that LA feels like home.
Well, you're an established writer, a YouTube star. I mean, clearly LA is where you should be.
All right, thanks.
well, thank you so much for being on the show and having me in Casa Gaimon. This is fantastic.
Thanks for coming over.
But thanks so much for being on the show. This was great.
Sure thing. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to episode 26 of the Group Ride Podcast. This show works best when the community gets involved, so follow me on Twitter and Instagram at the Group Ride Pod and on Facebook at the Group Ride Podcast. You can also check out past episodes of the show at thegroupride.com. If you have feedback for the show or just want to give me a tip on someone to interview, email me at podcastfeedback@thegroupride.com. Thanks again for listening to episode 26 of the Group Ride Podcast. I'm your host, Wes Salmon. See you on the next Group Ride.